It's time for another video. This is episode 2 of my new releases series. Episode 2 for 2022. A bit of a delay on this one, but health problems. When you're approaching 68 and the humidity is pushing the mercury up to 95, this has quite an impact on your muscular system, and that's certainly the case with me. So let's get started with all the dribble about health. Let's get started with the music, and I want to open up with my first selection. It's called Change the Show, and it's by Miles Kane. It's very much indie rock, and this album arrives 3 years after his 2018 coup de grace, which I didn't get round to hearing, but it's a concoction of a fizzy mix of vintage-inspired anthems. Of course, he was a member of the duo The Last Shadow Puppets with Arctic Monkeys frontman Alex Turner, but this solo effort is the first time I've really dipped into him, and I'm really pleased I did. Quick sprint through the tracks. Starts off with Tears Are Falling, very keyboard driven this one, but it perfectly evokes the glitter rock balladry of icons such as Mark Bolan and David Bowie. So after a good start, the second track, Don't Let It Get You Down, is slick pop with some sumptuous soft horns added to zippy vocals that has a killer beat. Then we've got Nothing's Ever Gonna Be Good Enough. This is a Motown sounding duet with one Corinne Bailey Ray, an artist that I absolutely adore. Just wish she'd release more material. It's very snug and hooky, and Corinne's vocals are absolutely gorgeous. See You When I See You is a very Beatlish soul piece with punchy horn hits and fuzz-tone George Harrison guitar accents. And then we've got Never Get Tired of Dancing. Bit MOR this, too many horns really, but the chorus plods a bit. What you feeling? Very soul Stax sound here. It's all over this piece. It's got some neat snappy guitar breaks as well. And feminine style chorus. It's a very polished 60s style. And then we move on to Coming of Age. Reminded me a little bit of Graham Parker at its best, as the beat skips soulfully into the early 60s. And I love the piano patter. Very late 50s guitar break, almost doo-wop influenced Phil Spector. And then the title track, Change the Show. Very snappy rock here with eager guitar breaks and punchy emotive vocals. Next up is Constantly, a dreamy early 60s ballad. Miles sounds a little bit like Alex Turner, no less. Atmosphere loads up with guitar breaks, and it adds in some minimal strings which perfect the vibe. Caroline is next, and this is definitely a nod to Mark Bolan. I thought he'd walked into the studio to sing. Great bouncy pop song. And then we end on Adios Tara Tara. Mega backing vocals on this, which leads to a sleazy Blow Monkeys type beat. It's addictive with touches of arrangements that don't overpower the tender harmonies. Well, overall, I was very impressed with this effort by Miles Kane, and I'll certainly get back to it on a regular basis. Suggest you give it a listen. Some great music on this album. Second offering on this episode 2, new releases 2022. This is The Gods We Can Touch by an artist called Aurora. I've never heard her before. This is her 4th album. She's a Norwegian pop star, would you believe it? And she mixes natural live sounding vocals and acoustics instrumentally with ethereal processed harmonies. And there's lots of drum machines and synthesizers on this as well. I must admit, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot, and I'm going to go through the track list now. And as I say, her 4th album's The Gods We Can Touch. Quick sprint through the tracks again. The Forbidden Fruits of Eden is just an intro, timeless harmony evokes. Then we move on to Everything Matters, which almost has a mystical Kate Bush-like feel on the vocals. It rushes and then skips like into a folk electronic beat with piano. Giving Into the Love is next. What ABBA should be doing, I felt, in 2022. A more explosive use of electronics. Cure for me has got a jerky pop hint at Borg, same part of the world, I guess, but more accessible synths. It's a nice single and would make a good a pop release, I think. Then we've got You Keep Me Crawling, a very moody ballad this that's symphonic in delivery, but there's an urgent vocal that strides out. Exists for Love, gentle acoustic intro with solo vocals here. Very sweet they are as well, and dreamy arrangements with some swirling strings. And then we move on to Heathens, that's Heathen, shuffles with the synths and the drum machines, and it's got some out of space electronics. Not so keen on this one, it has to be said. Now to The Innocent, a fast tempo piano driven with harmonies, which is prevalent throughout this track, tinges of orchestration, which heighten as the outro arrives. And then a track that I really like, Exhale, Inhale, a bass riff sets up a mystical atmosphere with terrific vocals, both lead and backing. The storytelling immerses you in the listening attentively, and the ethereal sound envelops you. Then we move on to a temporary high, a more rock feel here, explodes into ABBA-influenced pop dance. A Dangerous Thing is next up, it's stripped back, almost singer-songwriter here. Then the rhythms collide with the vocal palette. And then a very strong track called Artemis. It's very sparse, it tells its seductive narrative with a Mediterranean flair that includes fingerstyle guitar and a bit of bandoneon on Spanish. That's a Spanish concertina. I didn't pronounce that very well. Bandoneon. That's added anyway, and some of those other lovely vocal harmonies layer over it. And then we hear a theremin, and there's going to be a picture on this video, and it's an instrument that you don't touch. News to me, but I saw it demonstrated, and it's very, very interesting. Then we move on to Blood in the Wine. The intro sounds like a Western score, and when the beat launches the tone, it returns to that image at the beginning. It's a powerful piece that's a standout. This Could Be a Dream, penultimate track, another beautifully drifting ballad here with sumptuous vocals and a lovely melody. And then to the last track on this album, A Little Place Called the Moon, a vintage theatrical orchestral pop, and it leaves listeners on that magical note. Awesome vocals to wrap up with. She's a great album. I think I'm going to check out this artist, her earlier work, because if it's half as good as this, I'll be listening to it in a lot. Listen to it in a lot. You know, you get my understanding. So there we have it. A very, very good album by the Norwegian pop diva. Is that how you would call her? I guess you would. Aurora. Certainly the name's a bit sort of spacey. The album's title is The Gods We Can Touch. Get to listen to it. I'm sure you'll love it. And of course, as always, there's links in the description to this music and all the music on this video on YouTube. Mostly complete albums, although occasionally I just have to settle for the occasional song. Time for the third offering on this new releases episode 2. This album's called Strictly a One-Eyed Jack, and it's by John Mellencamp. Now, this is John's 24th studio album. Yeah, this guy's been around for a while, and he hit the 7.0 as well recently. The album cover is interesting. It's a portrait of him painted by his son Speck. Mellencamp. I really got into him early on when he was John Cougar. Then I sort of drifted apart, and slowly I've edged my way back and became quite a fan of his once we turned into the millennium. I have to say I've grown into this type of music from the Americas. It's a combination really of rock with that world blues folk country feel, which back when I was a teenager I just could not cope with. Now it tends to be my first choice of listening, possibly because the hard rock stuff actually shakes me to the core. So anyway, here we've got it. It's a new album by John Mellencamp. I'm going to go through the track list briefly. This is not a full album review. It's because there's no references really to lyrics on this. It's just a quick dabble on first and second impressions. So let's get to it. I Always Lie to Strangers kicks us off. It sounds like Tom Waits, perhaps his brother. Wonderful fiddle solo in the middle of this gruff intro. It's very cynical in the lyrics. A slow piano ballad that Mellencamp was inspired to write after finding out that the average person hears several hundred lies a day and tells about 150 of their own. Now you know. Next up, Driving in the Rain. It sways in like a country folk ceremony. Incisive guitar work drifts amidst the violin and the feminine harmonies. A euphemism, perhaps, to Mellencamp's grandfather, I read, who used to warn a young Mellencamp when he was living dangerously. It probably was inspired by the COVID-19 pandemic. And then track 3, I Am a Man That Worries. More strident stripped back blues with smoky authenticity. And there's a snippet of banjo in here, I think. Impressive Streets of Gallery is next. Acoustic piano combination for this lovely folk song. And then I love this Sweet Honey Brown. It's a rock song, and it shines really. It's got some raucous guitar contrast with smooth violin, and a bluesy harmonica adds to the earthy atmosphere. It's a song about a life wasted on heroin, although on the surface it may seem that Sweet Honey Brown is a love song to a woman. The sweet honey, however, is referred to is in fact heroin. Then he gets his old buddy Bruce Springsteen to chip on the next song, which is called Did You Say Such a Thing? Springsteen plays a wiry guitar and slide backing vocals. And this is a rocker for sure. Very American heartland rock song. Then we move on to Gone So Soon. This is a piano ballad with a bit of a jazz lounge feel to it as John returns to the Tom Waits delivery. It's about a relationship ending. The song features a trumpet solo, which is excellent, from Joey Tartell. And then on to Wasted Days. Bruce joins John again for this duet. It's about an aging man who knows his days are numbered, but who tries to make the most of each day he has left. Great accordion, and Bruce tends to add buckets to the passion. He tends to G John up. Great guitar break by him as well. So on to Simply a One-Eyed Jack. Gruff John here hits southern states with a hillbilly country offering. The sound is easy on the listener. I can't remember what I was going to say. The front cover. It's probably recalling that aged, experienced, honest, humble dude. Next up is Chasing Rainbows. Here we're harmonising on the chorus with guest musician Meret Lear. It's a bit of a sing-along feel to it. That's what I wanted to say. Then we've got Lied to Me. Heartland rock again is unpacked here. Raspy vocals jives with the piano and guitar riffs. It's probably one of those that will go down live on those sweaty live gigs, and we'll treasure this tune, I'm sure. And then to the finale, A Life Full of Rain. Over 5 minutes this one. Piano quickly joined by accordion, and then we add in John's lead vocals. It returns to the topic of life's toughness. It's a slow folks blues that closes out a powerful record by Mellencamp, who's now ready for that mortality. Not morality, he's ready for the mortality. But he's still hungry for song and creativity. And this is got it in spades. And adding Bruce in, of course, always adds to the sales. Great little album by John Mellencamp. So get to listen to it. My final offering then is the Zealot Gene by Jeff Rotol. 22nd album by these guys, which of course is basically Ian Anderson with friends. First for a very long time, and in terms of studio work, the first since the Christmas Songs album, which I believe was released in 2003. There is a lot of overdriven power chords on the album's title track, but apart from that, the album's largely acoustic driven, with piano and subdued percussion with lots of flute. Now, a little bit of a backdrop. I read up a little bit on Ian Anderson before getting this review down, and what struck me was the fact that he now suffers from COPD, which is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, which to you and me means that his lungs ain't that good. So I was quite amazed that his singing was pretty good for a 74-year-old, and the fact that he can blow the flute as well is something short of amazing. So I got pretty irate with a review I read on another channel on YouTube, Taste Like Music. They were very sort of throwaway about this album, and I found it quite insulting, really, that these three young boys should have the audacity to criticise a man who's been playing music for over 55 years and delivering a lot of tremendous music, and he then gets a new band together but uses Jeff Rotol, which is basically him, and then he's attacked on all sides because the album is viewed as predictable and uninspiring. It's a Jeff Rotol album. You know, if it doesn't have any flute on it and very clever little storylines with intricate guitars and keyboards, it wouldn't be Jeff Rotol, would it? So I'll be sending a link to this video to these three guys because I find this type of reviewing, apart from being very subjective, very offensive. I think these youngsters should actually just review new music, because they've got no idea the contribution that this man has made to popular music since 1966. Okay, that's my rant. Now we're going to get onto the track list. Okay, so let's get started with the opening track. This is called Mrs. Tibbetts, a 5.5 minute opener. A real feeling of excitement I had as the flute bounces in on this opener. I couldn't read an electric guitar credit, but there is some on here. I guess it's probably an overdub from Ian. But crisp rock beat, strings wrap themselves around the rhythm, the little guitar solo. Is it Bar's Ghost? I asked myself. The closing lyric refers to a Merry Christmas. Thanks, Ian. I think he's pointing out how people's lack of action, lack of outspoken opinion leads to things happening that aren't good. Maybe another reminder of climate change or the response to COVID. Then we moved on to Jacob's Tales, back to this swashbuckling harmonica, I felt. Acoustic guitar drives the melody, but there's certainly a hint of the blues. It isn't. Ian, as usual, is quite whimsical on vocals, throwing out another storytelling episode. And I believe, reading the lyric, that it's about a mystery and the thuggery of families and how grabbing the family heirlooms takes centre stage amidst the family's appearance of being close. Track 3, Mine is the Mountain. This is my personal favourite on this album. It's a 5.5 minute song. The piano haunts the intro, and with Ian's echo deep vocals prominent. It's very grand and imposing, with the flute reflecting courtyard pastimes. It's a spectacle right off Minstrel in the Gallery or Heavy Horses, with that marching pomp flute progressive field. Lyrically, I think it's Ian's alternative God reality. It's adorned with the balance of compassion and ruthlessness. It's a counterpart, I think, to the track My God on Aqualung, and Ian claims it's the opposite, of course, a bookend to that. It's certainly very grand and prophetic. Now to the title track, the Zealot Gene. Here we've got a progressive rock with flute, and the chords are quite heavy, but it's very much a reconstruction of the late 70s, early 80s, with that rat-tat-tat rhythm. Ian's in good voice, and he adds on the instrumentation with zeal, building a commanding sound. Guitar riffs, familiarity intertwines with flute spurts. Lyrically, the strong political overtones regarding populism, its attractive image is pointed out, and its destructive abuse of power. And where do you stand? This power grab. Are you an activist, or are you easily manipulated? An extract for you to ponder on. Half of us are in the apple, half of us are in the pie, all of us are in the pudding. When the last bus has gone by, someone has to take the high road, someone has to make the bed. No one has the right to tell you to lie down when all is said. The black and white, the stereotype, the polarisation pitch at play, while some of us sit in between interminable shades of grey. No need to walk the tightrope set out on that great divide. The balance scales may tremble, but the featherweights are on our side. Carrying the Zealot Gene, right or left, no in between. Beware, beware the Zealot Gene, naked flame near gasoline. The populace with dark appeal, the pandering to hate, which xenophobic scaremongers deliver on a plate, to tame the pangs of hunger and satisfy the lust. Slave to ideology, moderation bites like dust. Bee buzzing in your bonnet, and a wasp right up your bum, a V8 under the hood, a cocked hammer under thumb, ear-splitting Twitter thunder, and a screaming banshee wail. You got too many opinions, and a tomcat by the tail. Wow, that's pretty political stuff. And of course that is on a slide for yourself to peruse. Shoshana Sleeping is next. A very folky medieval rhythm here. It's a children's story, recycled melody, tap-footing stuff, hints at a jester's event. Heavy Horses era, I put. And then we've got Sad City Sisters, and more of that era with mandolin and accordion to add to the folk feel. And there's a penny whistle that starts it off. Where is the wood, I ask? If you love that era of Tull, this will be right up your street, as it is mine. And then we get on to Baron Beth, Wild Desert John. Of course, these characters are fictional. Anderson has this amazing ability to create these fictional characters, but he did share in an interview I saw that he basically uses them to describe people that he's come across throughout his life. So they're bits of one person and bits of another, and he joins them together. What a talent. Beautiful flute intro links with the lead vocals here, and it's got an odd sounding backing vocal, albeit brief, and later some crisp short guitar riffs are interlinked with brief flute moments. Now on this guitar, I found out that he has recruited a guitarist for the tour. I saw a concert in Italy a few nights back. I won't go into that too much, just to say it was pretty first class. But no credit on the album. Okay, so The Betrayal of Joshua Kind is next. And this is a partner piece, I think, with the previous song. But the guitar break seems a bit louder, but trimmed to allow piano-flute combinations to dominate. There's a rhythmic vibe to be sure, and it's absolutely fine, old chap. Last few tracks, less of an impact, but repeated listen necessary, really. Where Did Saturday Go? A very folky-like song with gentle acoustic and flute married together, with Ian's dainty vocals on top. A homage to Saturday of sorts, and then we've got Three Loves 3, segues into the next track, In Brief Visitation. A tale of finding a fall guy to blame, a metaphor for COVID-19, I would suggest. Musical pleasantry as the songs from the wood meet heavy horses again. And then the last track, The Fisherman of Ephesus, got it. Lots of synths battle it out with the flutes, and there's a typical guitar riff. Lots of mythological imagery on this. Ephesus is a port in Turkey, but historically it was a vital sea link in the ancient Greek Empire. So, in conclusion, Anderson, virtually all of the instrumentation on the album, apart from a bass guitar player and a drummer who chip in. Okay, so I think this is really tidy piece of work. You know, this man is sort of sick and extremely elderly, and he's still putting together a product that I think is pretty strong. Yes, it's not Akluang, it's not stand up, but goodness gracious me, he was a youngster then. If you know Jethro Tull and understand their music through the decades, you'll snap this up and you'll put it on and you'll love it. Okay, so that completes my episode 2 of New Releases. I hope you enjoyed it.